Hello, I'm Adam Watson, on social media as @WatsonEdTech and @KYEdRPG. You're about to hear my interview with Sterling Harris, an English teacher at Western High School, the STEM magnet, located in Louisville, Kentucky as part of the Jefferson County Public Schools District. While I've visited Sterling and Western before, this was the first time I'd come to see his creative writing with D&D classroom in action, a course he had just launched for this 2025-2026 school year. After observing the class, Sterling and I sat down during his planning so I could ask him some follow-up questions. I only recorded our talk so I could transcribe it later using the microphone of my laptop. However, the conversation was so awesome, I decided, with Sterling's permission, to share it as a podcast on my Watson EdTech YouTube channel. Again, that wasn't the original plan, so no professional microphones, no optimum studio setup. However, I hope you'll appreciate the quality of the content and therefore overlook any recording flaws. Special thanks to Purple Planet for their royalty-free music at www.purple-planet.com. So, without further ado, here's Sterling Harris. I'm Adam Watson. It is Friday, October 24th, 2025. I'm here with Sterling Harris. We are at Western STEM Magnet High School. First off, just for background, I know you've shared this with me before, but I want to make sure I get all the details right. Walk me through a little bit of like your teaching background and biography. So start with, I started teaching in what year, and where was that, and what content, and kind of work your way up to when you started at Western.
Okay. I started teaching through Teach for America. Was it 2016, 2015? I think it was around 2015, 2016, sometime around there.
Maybe that school year, yeah.
Somewhere around then. I went through Teach for America and with Appalachia Corps. So my first school that I was assigned to was Breathitt County High School in Jackson, Kentucky. I was certified to teach English and social studies, and so I taught mostly English. I taught a social studies class here and there, but mostly English. And I taught English and theater. I also started the theater program at Breathitt County. They hadn't had one maybe since the 80s. And so we kind of got a theater program started up there as well. And then I was there for 4 years. Supposed to only be there for a couple years, but we had COVID and everything else. So it ended up being 4 years. And then we came back home to Louisville, where I started working at Western High School, and that was about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And been here since, and I've been teaching English and creative writing and theater here.
Do you, just because of the pandemic, did you come to Western after the pandemic?
Yes, yeah, we came after that. We came after, I was planning on moving back home that in 2020. That was the plan. That was going to be my last year at Breathitt. But because of the pandemic, we got stuck there for another year. So.
Okay, so around 2021 then, probably. Okay.
I think that's when I got here, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I guess I'm going in I know I'm going in my 5th year because last year was last year was my first, I started out teaching freshmen here, and then last year they all graduated. So this is my
That's good sequencing. Well, and
that's how I remember.
May 2026 would have put it at about 5 years of them. Okay. Now, switching gears a little bit, tell me about kind of your TTRPG journey. So what games did you start playing back way back in the day? And then we'll start that. So just kind of give me that. What launched you in the world of playing TTRPGs? What game, when was this age-wise?
All right, so this is kind of funny when I actually admit it. So the first game I actually really got into was D&D, and it was in 1983.
Okay.
And that was the red box basic set, and then the blue box expert set, which to this day remains one of my favorite games ever, and so on from that whole thing. And then I transitioned over into AD&D, I guess in middle to high school. But I'm overlooking an embarrassing part of my gaming history, which is the first role-playing game I ever actually played is widely considered to be the worst role-playing game ever made, which is TSR's Indiana Jones role-playing game.
We've talked about this, and we share this because That wasn't my first, but I very eagerly purchased it, and I still have the box set with all the little cutouts.
I do too.
But anyway, so that started you.
Yeah, I found it in a hobby store somewhere, like it was at a mall or something. I was looking at I don't know, whatever. I was just looking around and I saw that, and I was obsessed with Indiana Jones back then.
Who wouldn't be?
Yeah, I would. I mean, well, this was '83, right?
Yep.
So 83, 84, and this was right before I started playing D&D, like a few months. Because what happened was I saw this and I had no idea what a role playing game was. So I took it home, had no idea what I was getting into, and I'm reading it, and my like 8-9-year-old brain is just blown by this concept, because I'm like, there's no board, and like, how do we do this? And then what? But I eventually figured it out, and then it was like for the creators of Dungeons and Dragons, and I'd always heard of D&D, and I love fantasy. Even though I was 8 or 9 years old, I still like loved Conan the Barbarian and Excalibur, and I'd read The Hobbit and Chronicles of Narnia, and so like I was, D&D was where it was at. So I knew like, so Indiana Jones was okay. I thought it was fun, whatever, but it quickly led me to D&D.
It was your gateway.
It was my gateway. Yeah,
TTRPG.
Yeah.
I love that. I think we can probably count on single digits of hands. You're probably one of the few people actually I've ever met that in the day actually bought it and even played it. So that makes me excited.
Yes. I forced my little brother to play it with me several times. So.
What? Tell us a little bit about TTRPGs that you're playing now.
Okay, so now, well, of course, I'm still playing D&D after all these years, and I'm playing 5th edition. I'm actually playing in a game, which is nice. I never get to do that very often. I usually DM. I've been DMing since I was 8. So
well, you have to somehow.
Yeah,
who else will?
Yeah, I had to start. Although I will say this, I will give my dad this much. He back then, he read through all the rules, and he actually ran me through Keep on the Borderlands. The Keep on the Borderlands.
The original Keep on the Borderlands. Very exciting.
He ran me through
that.
What
a good dad.
Yeah. And so that was awesome, and that was I did get to play way back then, but usually I was DM. And at DM now, I run a Roll20 game with some of my students from Breathitt County. Well, they used to be students; they're all in their 20s now. But we play a Adventures in Middle Earth game on Roll20 using 5e, D&D 5e, and then I have another game, the Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage, that we've been running kind of off and on. But I'm kind of really focused right now on Pendragon. Chaosium, the 6th edition of Pendragon, is out, and so I've been really getting into that. And my friends and I are huge Pendragon fans, and so we were really excited to see the new edition come out. And so we've been playing that very enthusiastically. So doing a lot of Pendragon. Sometimes I play Call of Cthulhu, another favorite of mine. So if you were like, my favorite games would probably be Pendragon, Call of Cthulhu. Earlier we talked about One Ring from Cubicle 7 and the 5e adaptation, Adventures in Middle Earth. I love it. I think it's a great game. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much what I'm playing right now. So yeah, the Pendragon, Call of Cthulhu, One Ring, and then of course D&D. So
okay. Well, now we're going to talk more about your class that we're actually sitting in the middle of. So first off, tell me, is the official name of the class? It's an elective, and it's creative writing with D&D.
Yep,
okay,
that's the name of the class.
Is it a year-long class or a semester-long class? Or
it's year-long.
Okay,
year-long.
And this is the first official year of it.
Yeah,
you started this fall of 2025 as the first time. Okay,
right.
Tell me just some quick demographics in the sense of like, I did kind of a quick head count, but if you had full roster, how many people are in the class this year?
Well, that's a good question. We had 24. I think we're sitting around 21 maybe now.
And what grade levels of students do you have in the class?
All of them.
So it's 9 through 12?
Yeah.
All right.
Freshmen to seniors.
Okay.
And I have them all.
I gotcha. What inspired you to try a class like this? And I'm going to play a little bit of a seed because I know before the recording we talked a little bit about John Brewer and some of his materials.
Yep.
But that said, just pulling back maybe in more general sense, what made you say, can I do this? I want to do this. I think there's value in this, and I want to do this as a full long course. This isn't like a funsy thing you do once a week or once a month. It is the course that's based on Dungeons & Dragons to help with creative writing. So go ahead.
Well, I developed. So when I was with Teach for America, We were doing some kind of thing with OutSchool. You know about OutSchool? It's an online school where you sign up for classes in anything. It could be any kind of skill, and people just teach classes online. And I got suckered into thinking it was going to be more than a waste of time. It was a waste of time, unfortunately, because I never got anyone interested in any of my classes, any of the classes that I proposed. But I think it's because there's a whole lot of people on there. I think it's just overwhelmed with
a lot of choices.
A lot of choices. But what I did, though, I very enthusiastically, thinking that it was going to take off, was developing a curriculum for a ELA with Dungeons and Dragons. So it was like the idea we were supposed to come up with a summer. It was the thing TFA was doing was we were doing like a summer school thing with OutSchool to help deal with that summer slump that kids have, and so and it was supposed to be like I don't know if they were supposed to promote it. It didn't work out, but point being, I developed a curriculum for ELA with D&D. And I put
now we're talking like a decade ago. Years ago.
That's about about that. Maybe 7 years, 7, 8, about almost a decade ago.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I've had that curriculum sitting around, and then
it's kind of in the desk drawer, so to speak.
Yeah, and I keep bringing it every once in a while. I'll say, I got a curriculum for about, and then I was talking to someone in admin, and he's been someone here who's a really big supporter of using D&D. He helped me push the Flex Club, and we have the Flex Club that meets at the beginning of the day. We have our Flex classes, which are like basically club classes, and we do that every day for about 50 minutes. So it's not like a regular link class, but it's really good for social emotional learning and bonding and stuff like that, building relationships. And so,
can we pause because that's an important part of the story. Was the Flex Club and you offering and running a D&D game club, was that something that's been around for a couple of years, like ever since you've been at Western? How long has that been?
That's a good guy. You're right. I'm jumping ahead. So first, I started the after-school D&D club in Breathitt County as soon as I started teaching there. That's one of the first things I did because I just wanted to do. I was already doing I was going to do theater. I knew that, but I wanted to do an after-school D&D club because I love D&D and I know it's really useful in teaching. And so and I started getting involved with KVEC, getting their mini grants. I would apply for their mini grants, and I would start doing this research in order to show what the mini grants were going towards and how I could use D&D in teaching. And the more I did that, the more I saw how useful it was, the more effective it was, and I saw it working. Like I saw students who were involved in the after-school club. I saw their reading scores going up regularly, steadily. I saw them reading when they weren't reading before, things like that. And so I started really seeing the benefits of just an after-school club. And I actually tracked their the data. Like I got their scores, their reading map scores, and saw that all the kids that were involved in the D&D club had increasing reading scores over the 4 years. And so that was where I started with the after school club. So when I got here, first thing I did was set up another after school club, and it went really well. But what was really exciting was when we got the Flex, and that was a couple years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It was in maybe my second year teaching or third year teaching here. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, so if
I can interrupt. The thing that I imagine, and if we may use the word equitable thing of that, is that after school, it literally being after school after the bell rings.
Right.
Already you're starting with things like the kids that can get a ride and all that stuff. So the participation is based on that.
Yes.
Whereas a Flex Club, because of the way the hours are built, it's anyone in the school having the chance to participate in a club of their Flex Club of their interest.
Absolutely, and I think that's so important because that's one of the issues that I did see with the after school club in both schools, and was that when we had an after school club, only certain kids could participate in it, not everybody could participate in it. And really it changed once we got a Flex Club because we got more and more kids and the group became more diverse. And it wasn't just, all guys and stuff like that. Like, it just started becoming this, it really was all the students here. It really reflected all the students here. Which
I
was
love
really
that.
cool.
Again, side note, I noticed that in today's sitting in today's class,
Yeah.
is that your class really is representative of the demographics of your
Mm-hmm.
school. It's not just one group, one gender, or anything.
Yeah, it's definitely not, a white boys club,
Yeah.
which D&D can be some, it historically there have been issues with that, that, and sometimes that's just because, like, that's the stereotype, or maybe that's the kids that got attracted to it or whatever, but I mean, we have, it's really a diverse group we have playing, and it's really been great that way, and it's not been just guys either too, it's just been good.
So to close the story, so the Flex Club was going on, obviously popular, and
Yeah,
so then you
going
started
really
probably
well.
thinking about that Death Store curriculum. So
Yep.
so close that
And
story. How did that
and-
lead to fall of
and
2025?
and that's when I had a friend admin say, have you thought about actually doing a class? I said, well, of course I have. I've been working on this. And then I was like, I don't really want to do an English class because it doesn't really fit. But when we talked about it, I was like, many of the students that I had in the Flex were really good writers. And they were always bringing me their work and having me look at it, proofread it, and they're writing fantasy. And I'm like, you know what? I could do a fantasy creative writing class and using D&D, and that's kind of where I developed it from there.
I love it.
So
Okay.
and so that's kind of where we went, and it was really suggested by a member of admin who was like, you should really do that, and I was like, you know what, I'd love to do that. So
I've just been waiting for you to ask.
yeah, I really, because like I honestly didn't think to suggest it because I didn't think, I guess I didn't think they would want me to, or I don't know, I wasn't. But I was glad that they suggested it.
And that they support it.
Yeah. Oh, and I've got a lot of admin support here. They really see, they just see the benefits of it, and it's unconventional and it's definitely weird, but it works, and the thing is too is, not all the students are writing about their D&D adventure, right? Some of them just use it as inspiration to write. I mean, we're all writing fantasy, but I've got some students, because I had some students that were struggling with it, and like, I don't remember exactly what happened, and I don't know about this. I was like, then just use it to inspire you to write a fantasy story. Some kids,
You're not doing a journalistic
exactly.
class.
Although, yeah, exactly. That's what I told them. I was like, you guys aren't journalists. I mean, you're creative writers. I was like, you don't have to write down everything that happened, or write about everything that happened. I was like, just make it up. It's creative writing. So in some cases, I have kids that are, writing about other characters and other settings or whatever, but still it's helping them get the creative juices flowing and coming up with story ideas and, and developing those relationships with other students, because they're all paired up and they all have a proofread partner that they're paired up with.
Okay.
So.
Well, this is a great segue into now getting a little brass tacky about the brass tacks about this.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through like just a week in the life of. So like in a Monday through Friday way. What's kind of the weekly structure like as far as the class meets every day? Because again, it's a full class.
Every other day.
Every other day.
Yeah.
Based on your scheduling.
We're on block scheduling. Yeah.
Okay, so every other day. Based on that, how does it work as far as on a typical day structure? And one of the things I guess I'm setting you up for is explain that 3-group phenomenon.
Right.
Okay.
So the class, the big obstacle we started out with that I was really struggling with was trying to figure out how to take a class of 24 students and implement D&D. And I've seen it done different ways. I've seen teachers that have used, I think, what's his name? Cade Wells did this. He was the
South Dakota teacher, Casey
Cade
Wells. Yep.
Yeah, and he was in Texas when I started following him. He's
Yeah,
South Dakota now. But what he did was he would write these like choose your own adventure using Pear Deck and have it set up to where they would have their characters go through the adventure individually, like on their Chromebooks or whatever. They sit and go through the adventure, and I thought that was okay. But I really wanted my kids to have the experience of being together in the party, working together, the tabletop experience. And so what I decided to do was I had a chunk of kids who were experienced, who were in the Flex Club, who had been around, been playing for years. So I made them my advanced group, and they were kind of on their own. I mean, I gave them we're all playing the Dragon of Icefire Peak as the Essentials kit. So it's a 1 to 5 level mini campaign, and that's what we're using. We're all playing that. So it's the same story. I wanted to make sure we had the same basic story. And so they're running that. and they have a DM who's running that, and
That's
it's
a student DM.
That's a student DM,
Yes.
absolutely, who's been playing for years, and they have they have their assignments and they work on, but they're in a lot of ways they're very much independent. They're kind of operating on their own, and I make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. I make
Turning their work, checking in, of course, right.
And if there's days like if they're not getting stuff turned in, I'm like, guys, you can't play today. You're going to have to write today and whatever. So, and that's also been a really good motivator too, because I can tell it's the kids that are really into playing D&D. I can be like, okay, you guys can't play until you get this turned in, and then they'll get it turned in.
Yeah, it almost popped in my head just as you were saying that. There's kind of like a little bit of a right to play to write.
Yes.
Writing allows me the privilege and opportunity to play.
Right.
Playing provides inspiration for me to be able to write. It's a great circle.
Exactly, yeah. And so then the rest of the class is split into two. We have a green group and a gold group. And when I DM for both of them, and when I run like green group, then gold group is writing. And if I run D&D for a gold group, then green group is writing.
Gotcha.
So they'll have we have journal assignments, which a lot of those are drawn from Mr. Brewer's
creative writing class.
Creative writing progress
And
assignments.
a pause, John Brewer is our friend who also has a creative writing fully infused course. He had D&D as part of it all year long, or all semester long in his case. But he is a high school teacher at Shawnee in Jefferson County as well. Western is also a Jefferson County public school. So you've borrowed some. We have some materials on KY@RPG.com where we have some of his course. So so you just borrow from
materials.
that.
They've been really helpful, especially the introductory D&D materials, and just in general. It's just been good, and it's been so. They have journal assignments that they have to do based on stuff like that, and then they have stories that they have to work on, and the stories are they can be based well, first we did character assignments, so they had to do character backstories. They had to do like a character analysis of their own character, overview, stuff like that. And then now we're getting into their first adventure. Now when we started off, this was a lot of fun. When we started, like the first week of school or 2 weeks of school, what I did was I identified the kids who did have D&D experience in the class, and I took 5 of them and I made them DMs. And then I had them run these short demo encounters for their demo opening encounters for Storm Wreck Isle, right?
Okay.
And they're really quick little encounters, but I had them, and it was cool because we had 5, 6 different D&D games running at once in the classroom, and they were all informed, and it was really, really cool. Like, I think at one point the assistant principals walked in and just couldn't believe it because it was just like everybody was engaged, everybody was on board. There were, and it was great. It was like 5 different D&D games going at once, and everyone was in on it. And it was none of them had ever, other than the DMs, most of the kids had never played before.
Okay.
Actually, in that class, the only people that had played had been the DMs. Like everyone else, no one had ever played before.
A little bit of a pause there, but now we're back, and the idea here is that we were talking about in the early stages of this class to get everyone a taste of DM or taste of D&D because a lot of them hadn't played before. We had the 5 ones who were familiar. They were the DMs. They ran this little one shot at the beginning encounter of Storm Wreck Isle. I think you were building past that to a point. Or?
Well, just saying. I mean, that was how we got started, and then they had to write. A little, a scene about what happened to them. Just writing about it. To get them used to the kind of concept of what we were doing. So
I love it. Well, this is another. You're doing great segues here. The next thing I was going to talk about. One of the things I've been in situations where recently I was at Rochester, New York, at the Serious Play Conference. I was on a panel, and inevitably, and it's a fair question, inevitably someone says, "Not yeah, but," that sounds a little negative, but they raise their hand. They say, "Okay." But in a class, let's say in a class like yours, it's proving the point that you could possibly have a fully infused, wall-to-wall D&D as part of the class.
Right.
What does assessment look like? So talk to me with the teacher hat on. What are you assessing, or what are students do that are assessed in terms of their work?
Well, first of all, the standards that we use are the narrative writing standards from English, from ELA. So then they're based on, I use the 11th, 12th grade standards. Since that's, a lot of my students are 11, 12. And so that's the first thing. It's all built around those standards. And that's what I originally built the ELA course. The original ELA course was built on those standards as well. I also want to point out too that this is also related to the Journey to Success skills that you know is a big, huge part of JCPS's graduation and what the kids have to do. And for us, we hit most of the Journey to Success skills. We have effective communicator. We have productive collaborator.
Those are the two that screamed out.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
those
absolutely.
Are obvious. But keep going because there's other ones.
There's more. There's more because productive innovator. They're innovators because, number one, they're doing something most of them have never done before. And number two,
they are truly emerging in the world of D&D as an emerging innovator.
Absolutely. Emerging innovator. That's the word.
Innovator.
And they are, and not only that, but they're using technology because that's a part of what we're doing here. Is we're also, as a STEM school, a STEM magnet, part of what I'm doing is using technology with our gaming. So we're using smart screens, we're using D&D Beyond, we're using these technological resources,
I noticed like we were using tabletop audio.
Yeah, we use tabletop audio. Yep.
And what I love is it's not even just for display. I took a picture of this because I loved it. In the student-led group today that I was visiting with and watching, they were using it in the annotation tools to be like, here's where the enemies are, and here's where you are, and you moved here, and this is where I'm moving. And, it was an aside, but the point is that they were really using the technology in a productive and useful way. And obviously, they have Chromebooks. We're one-to-one here.
Yeah. And now that's the other thing, too, is, we are one-to-one. And the other thing is we could conceivably sit down with Roll20 or D&D Beyond and plug in on the Chromebooks and look at the Chromebooks and see where the characters are on the map. The DM could sit behind his Chromebook and run it. But I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to go from tabletop experience of playing a game with your friends to replicating, multi-online gaming, where you're online gaming in the same room, and I didn't want to do that.
Well, also you have the beautiful opportunity of that they are literally face to face with real tables.
Right, exactly.
Let's take advantage of that.
Yeah, exactly, and that's important. But we can also use the technology as well while we're doing that, and so that's been really great. Innovator, emerging innovator, productive collaborator, and let's see, what am I? The communicator.
Globally and culturally competent citizen.
That is another thing the kids were talking about the other. I was actually asking them about this in Flex, and I was like, "What do you guys think? What skills we're hitting?" And they were talking about that. They thought that was actually one of the ones that we hit too, because they're interacting with people from different backgrounds. Not only that, but I don't know if you've heard. A lot of people say that theater is one of the best ways to teach empathy. Okay, because you're playing roles and you're seeing what it's like to be somebody else, and then that.
My favorite quote from Roger Ebert is that movies are empathy engines.
Yeah,
and I think the tabletop. I think you could substitute the word tabletop role playing game for
where I was
movie.
going with it. Yeah, because tabletop gaming is it's like theater. And that we are playing characters. We're getting in the minds of characters. I mean, we're literally doing method acting. I mean, that's what we are doing, and so that by doing that helps build empathy. And by building empathy, then we end up looking at the world and other people different ways. And so in a lot of ways, not only are they interacting with kids from different class, race, religion, gender backgrounds, different identities, but they're also learning to empathize. They're learning empathy, which I think is a part of being a globally, culturally competent citizen.
The only one we haven't touched, but since we've done such a good job in all the other ones,
is prepared resilience.
Yeah, talk about how these kids are showing resilience.
You know why? Because you don't always succeed in D&D, right?
Tell me more.
And that's the thing. Like they have had encounters where they have failed, or where they've been run off by a monster, or they couldn't fight this particular monster because it was too powerful. So they come back to it and they figure out, okay, how are we going to do this, or how are we going to solve this? I mean, so much of D&D is creative problem solving and working with each other. And sometimes it's recognizing when something is beyond you at this point. The Balrog and Moria. This is not time for you to fight it, but you're going to come back later and do it. And so and come up with a plan on how you're going to do it and how you're going to deal with it. And I think that's very much teaches resilience. Absolutely.
I love it.
Because I'm sorry. It's okay. So one of my favorite articles that I've used in my research and my writing on this is called shared fantasy. It's called shared fantasy. No, it has to do with needs met through. I can't remember. It's needs met through fantasy role playing or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've sent you the article before,
mm-hmm.
but it's an article about where our brains do not distinguish between real or imagined psychological needs that are met. So if we experience something in a game that makes us feel like we've accomplished something, it doesn't matter that it's not. My brain doesn't care that it's not real.
It's touching the same points.
It's hitting the same part, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we have these psychological needs, and we can meet them in games and feel as good about ourselves as we would if we'd done it in real life. So, because again, it doesn't really distinguish between the fantasy and the reality in that sense. And so, I think that where was I going with this? I know I was going somewhere with this.
We're talking about resilience, is what you
resilience, yeah.
Yes.
So that if you're learning to face difficulty, you face obstacles. When you run up against an obstacle and you fail, you're learning to overcome that. You're learning to deal with that, because failure is the best teacher. Kids want to succeed and succeed and succeed, but the real teacher is failure. That's who you learn, right?
Well said.
And so, and I think that if they learn it in that environment, they fail in that environment, and then because it's a safe environment where they can fail safely, and they're not worried about it. They might get upset that their character got killed by the dragon, but they're not going to be as upset. They're not going to be like, oh, I like getting an F on something or U on something, right? They're not. It's a safe space, right, where they can fail safely and then come back from it and learn that resilience. If that makes any sense.
It does absolutely make sense. So to kind of recap, as far as the things that you kind of assess, check for literal physical things turn in.
I didn't get to the assessment.
You started though.
Did I? Okay.
We talked about that there's a lot of journal entry and prompts.
Yes.
And on a side note for that, on your desk I noticed this lovely the World Builders Journal.
Oh yeah.
Have you pulled some things from that?
Yes.
I could see. I just flipping through it. I could see ooh, that'd be lovely prompts.
Oh, it's great. It's
okay.
Great. Yeah.
So you have journal entry prompts. Are they hoping or at some point producing some set of maybe a short story or something like that?
Oh yeah. Okay. I mean, it's multiple short. I mean, right now where we're at, right, they're writing a short story called My First Quest. And it's basically they're recounting the events of their first adventure, or someone else's first adventure, or whatever. But that's what they're doing right now, and it's they're using dialogue, using imagery. They're using. We haven't gotten too much into. Later, we're going to get into things like tone and mood and stuff like that. Right now, we're just kind of focusing on structure, narrative structure, and dialogue, imagery especially.
Imagery, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was a student that mentioned that at the very beginning about kind of that painting the picture with words kind of idea.
And that's one thing I'm really pushing, because I think a lot of them thought initially that I was asking them to give me a summary of their adventure, and I'm like, that's not what we're doing here.
Again, we're not journalists.
Right, exactly.
Well, how does reflection work? I know this. First off, the reality is that in a gaming experience, you're probably always reflecting. But
right.
In a more formal or even informal sense, students are asked to do that. He asked as a question mark.
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of my journal entries.
Perfect. Okay.
Involve reflection on their character sometimes, or on on the adventure or whatever they're doing. So.
Well, one last thing I want to come back to the journey to success skills.
Yes.
As part of that process, like many people do in different districts, there's some kind of defense. There's a portfolio created.
Right.
So in your class, looking ahead, we're in October right now, but going all the way to May.
Right.
What might be some potential strong artifacts that a student might be like, hey, this would be a lovely thing to bring forward?
We've had several. As a matter of fact, one of the best defenses we've ever seen came from one of my Flex kids last year.
Tell me more.
Last year. Oh, well, he did he did his defense as if it were it was so good, as if it were a crime investigation, and the investigation was his success skills, right? But he did it all with this whole noir feel, and I was so
That's
good.
awesome.
And everyone who was on the committee was just like, we were blown away, and it was like one of the best things we'd ever seen.
How creative.
It was just it's so creative. And I'm like, yeah, that's a kid who's been in D&D club for 4 years. So yeah, he has.
So bravo to that.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It was amazing. It was
Okay, I love it.
good. But one of the artifacts. This is one of the artifacts he uses. We'll take pictures of the game of the session, and they'll include. Sometimes they'll upload their character sheet to the gallery. Or they'll this is going to provide. One thing I like about this class is it's going to provide a lot of artifacts. I mean, from their backstory to their short stories and all these other things are going to provide a lot of artifacts for the Journey to Success Gallery, as it's called now.
Yeah.
But the last year it was like character sheets. They might upload their backstory that they wrote. This year we're gonna do a video. The goal is to do a video of a session, but not a whole session, but part of a session, so that the committee can see what the skills actually in action. Because there's one thing to look at a picture or to see a character sheet or read a backstory. It's another thing to see it happening.
Right. I love it.
We tried to do that last year during the. It was. I can't remember what it was. Like
exhibition?
It was an exhibition of success skills or whatever.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to have.
Which I visited one of those.
Yeah, and everyone was supposed to be showing off what they'd done, and we were like, well, we're not going to show off what we've done. We're going to play D&D and have them watch us play D&D.
Perfect.
Because I thought it was great. Unfortunately, wires got crossed, and we were supposed to be in the small gym while the performances were supposed to be in the big gym. They decided to put everything in the same gym. So what happened was we were there for about 30 minutes, and then they shut the lights out and started the music, and we couldn't play.
Hard to play through that.
Yeah, and we were like, okay, we're done. So
now, see, a creative adventure would have been they were the live symphony,
right,
of music driving the adventure. That would have been cool.
Yeah, that could have worked. I think we could have done that, but we probably would have upset everybody else around.
Everyone else may not have been on board.
Yeah.
One of the things that Kentucky talks about right now a lot is about vibrant learning, which has lots of components about joyful, authentic learning, deeper learning, etc. It's I'm giving you a softball here, and you've touched on parts of this, but take this class in quote unquote the real world. How, even if they don't actually become dungeon masters or go into the gaming industry or whatever, how does this help them? What do they learn that translates?
D&D teaches so much. I mean, beyond the basic educational skills like mental math and resource management and that kind of stuff, the kind of basic stuff that you learn in D&D. More importantly, it teaches these social skills. Social skills that can lead to being good teachers, lead to being good leaders, lead to being good salespeople. I learned really quickly that the skill needed to be a leader, a teacher, or a salesperson are all the same skill. It's all about getting to know, empathizing, getting to know somebody, and then finding out what that person really wants, and then connecting what you're doing with what they want. So I learned that from playing D&D. I learned that as a DM by looking at my group, my players, and figuring out what they wanted out of the game. Point is I learned leadership and teaching from playing D&D, and so those skills, that basic social interaction, those skills in of itself translated, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is just the working together in a group, collaborating like that is such an important skill, and it's something a lot of people don't do well, and it's something they're going to need in the world when they beyond high school. So the collaboration that we learned in D&D is going to help. The empathy we mentioned earlier about empathy, I think that's essential, and there's just so many different skills. I think I mentioned earlier about resource management and but also like dealing with failure, being resilience. So I don't know, just a lot of these things are don't necessarily apply to working in one industry or another. I mean, they could apply to anything.
I hear you.
But I think that, to me, ultimately, it really comes down to that social. You just develop a certain confidence. I think you see someone a kid who's been playing D&D longer, and you see a confidence that they develop that they did not have when they first started playing. And it's a confidence that I think comes from facing challenges and overcoming those challenges. And no, they're not real challenges. That's not a real dragon. It wasn't a real band of orcs. But you still did it. And there is a certain joy that comes with the joy that comes across when they're in the middle of a fight and, it's down to one roll and it could go the other way. It's, and they roll a die and it's a crit, and they lose their minds. And there's just that moment. You have those moments in D&D all the time, and the experience of that, I just think it builds this confidence, it builds a joy, it builds this camaraderie in the group that I think they take with them, wherever they go from there.
I hear. One thing I just wanted to highlight that you had said, and I wanted to tease and draw it out, is the idea that you were talking about as a dungeon master, as a DM, the leader of the group, that you are still very invested in, and you spend energy on bringing the players in. What do the players want? Maybe what things would they like to encounter or do? And really saying that is just to say the co-created story part of it.
Yeah.
This is not like someone's executing a script and everyone's just the little minions. Like the adventure is organic in that sense.
And
that's also life and building skills.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a collaborative story.
And
we're collaborating to make a story together, and and it's not one person telling the story to everybody else. So.
Gotcha. Well, we're wrapping it up. We're getting near the end. We have just a handful of remaining questions. I watched some Good Joy and stuff personally, but I wanted you to talk about your thoughts about how we're roughly a third of the way through the school year. How do you feel like the students have reacted? And if there's any particular story, without naming revealing a name,
of
but
course.
Is there any anecdotes that come to mind as far as maybe even a surprise? Like I didn't expect that student who may have not came in here and been like, I don't know about this class.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me about that.
Well, one of the cool things that is happening with this class is I've got a lot of kids that didn't want to be here. It's not that they didn't actively resisted being here. It's just that they didn't plan on being in a D&D class. They just signed up for creative writing, and then they realized it's a D&D.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So, and they had the opportunity to switch, but some of them were like, no, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to check this out. And most
there's resilience and persistence right there.
Yeah, exacu right.
From day one, they just by showing up.
They had the option of bailing, and they didn't. So that there are some students that didn't know anything about D&D, had no clue what it was, but stuck around because they were kind of intrigued, and they really are having a lot of fun with it, and they're really enjoying it. I think it's definitely work. I'm getting like more writing than I've gotten in any of the creative writing classes I've taught before. And it may not always be directly based on, the adventure they were on or whatever, but I'm just getting a lot more writing and a lot more passion about their writing for another thing, because they really care about, like, they want me to read it. Like, I get that all the time. Have you read it yet? Have you read it yet? Have you read it yet? So, right now I got a student who's trying to get me to read what he wrote. So that's one thing. Another thing that I've seen that's been really surprising is I have a lot of students that are international students, right? And I have a lot of students, especially from Africa, who I wasn't sure how they would react because I don't know if they'd come across this before in their own experience. And it's been really cool seeing international students who did no idea what D&D was just embrace it wholeheartedly and are just all in. I mean, it's great. It's loads of fun seeing this because a lot of those students are turning out to be some of my most dedicated players, but from their own background, cultural background, they'd never had any contact with it, had no idea what it was. I have another student whose English is not very good, who's a Spanish speaker, and he struggled at first with the game, with the class and everything else. But he is starting to, his creative work is just phenomenal. Like, he is writing some really cool fantasy. Now, it's rough, right? Because English is not his first language, and so it's rough, but it's imaginative and it's creative. And I know it's his work because it is rough, right? I can tell that this is not ChatGPT, right? Because I know he struggles with English, but I can also see where his creativity is coming through, and he's being inspired by the game. You know, he's in the game and he plays and has fun with it, and so, you know, those have been a couple things that I've seen that I just didn't expect that to happen. I wasn't really sure how that was going to, but it's been really, I've been pleasantly surprised by the students that I don't think I would have guessed would have embraced the game as much as they have. So
I've certainly seen and read some anecdotes, and what you said seemed to really emphasize it too, is the idea that as an aside of creative writing and writing, right, that the game also is providing that safe space to explore and practice speaking. First off, in general.
Yes.
Like, first off, all of us need that practice.
Exactly.
But
yes.
if you're a friend who English is your second or third language, right? This is a safe place, and perhaps we hope a fun place for them to do that, which isn't like me answering a science question, the pressure of the content and all that. It allows an outlet for me to brush that up and get better in that, more confident. You talked about confidence before.
Yeah.
That's another confidence builder for those friends.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and I knew a teacher who used D&D. He taught ESL, English Second Language. And so what he would do was he used D&D, and like common, you know, in D&D, the language of common, he used English, but then he had like elves speaking Spanish.
I love it.
And so if the character was an elf, they could speak Spanish to other elves, you know, whatever. And the teacher, of course, spoke Spanish and English. So it was really cool. But the concept of using these different, you know,
the fantasy languages were themed from
real world languages.
Like.
And so it allowed the students, you know, a chance to practice English, but also the comfort of falling back on Spanish Elvish, you know.
Right. So Swahili could be Dwarvish.
Absolutely.
Just pick up. I love it. You mentioned that already a few times of how you've really had some great admin support, even encouragement. I would use that word.
Yeah, absolutely.
So first off, I have a specific question because you mentioned it before we started recording. But before we get there, talk to me just in general. Anything else you want to talk about as far as the admin support or colleagues? Like what if some of your other English teacher friends?
We have the English department has been on board with this for a long time. Like I've got a lot of support from the English department, a lot of encouragement. But all the other teachers, like especially if we're doing like a training or at the beginning of the year, like if I get paired up with another teacher and then I have to do something related, like I have to come up with a project. I usually base it on D&D, and so they get some kind of exposure to it, and they're always like, "This is really cool what you're doing. We love." I always get a lot of positive encouragement from other teachers,
and that helps.
It really does. It really does. Because they see the results of it. You know, they see what's happening, and they know the kids that are doing this stuff, and they see those kids are doing really well, and so they know it's helping. You know, and that it works.
Can I? I would love for you to tell me about this. First off, to explain, you have a PBIS, that
positive behavioral incentive
intervention in sports.
Intervention, whatever.
Now, because the points for positive behaviors that students can use. But tell me how that ties back into like our D&D friends.
So that's a great thing too. This is another example of the admin support that we have because Army kids PBIS, they can buy Western T-shirts or they can buy a new agenda or snacks or whatever.
And this is a store that during lunch.
Yeah, during lunch, and during lunch they can go down to the store and they can spend their PBIS points. Well, we've got in our PBIS store, and this was not me that did this. This was the guy who runs the PBIS store. He's now got D&D dice sets. So you can go spend your PBIS points on dice, and we've got some serious dice goblins in this group, and so they're like dice, and so they're ready to spend.
Now, do you mean like serious, like I am serious, or you mean the company?
Oh, that's good.
The adjective serious. They really believe in dice.
Yes, absolutely. Well, they want. They are dice goblins. They will. If there's dice, they're going to buy more dice. So they can get dice. There's minis they can get. There's different sets of minis. And then we even last year, and we can do this again, is we've done gift cards for Heroes Forge, so that they can like design their mini based on the character and have Heroes Forge make it.
And
I mean, it's expensive, but it costs a lot of PBI's points for that one. But still,
it's a big reward.
It's a big reward. Yeah.
Well, and the thing that's fun about Hero Forge, for those that don't know, I'm speaking to this unknown audience that may or may not be listening to this, but Hero Forge, you can make an account for free and create a 3D image of it. If you want to pay money, you can download that file, and if you happen to have a 3D printer, you could print it. But you could also pay Hero Forge to print it out in full color.
Right.
That's not cheap. You know what I recently did? I used Hero Forge, and I got the STL file because I have a friend that has a 3D printer. But they have like flat minis now that aren't bad.
Oh yes,
for like $20 or something.
Yeah.
Which is full color, both.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah.
So Hero Forge does those now too.
They do.
That? I didn't realize they had done that. I knew
it's a nice economic way that if you want your actual character made,
I need to tell my students about that because that's a great idea.
I just recently got mine.
Minis are brilliant. It was a great idea to do those.
We're getting near the end, so I have two last big questions.
Okay.
Here we are. We're, like I said, we're a good quarter of the way through. A good teacher is probably always in constant reflection. I'm sure that's on a daily basis.
Yeah, definitely.
As we near the end of October, and you're thinking, okay, I would love to do this again. I'm sure you'll do it again. I'm sure the admin will support doing it again. But if you started this class in 2026 and it's the fall, what would you do differently? What's maybe a little tweaks that you've already thought, here's what I'm going to try to tweak or improve on?
Yeah, well, first thing I would do is I would make sure that either I taught or we had a regular creative writing class available. Because the problem that we had this year was we didn't have another creative writing class. So I'm teaching.
So the creative writing class is D&D, and that's what caused a little dissonance at the beginning.
And I think that's problematic because there are students that don't want to do that, and I think that's okay. And there's no, I think they should have the option, But then I had this situation where I had students that were like, well, can I, do this, just not play D&D? I had a couple students where they're like, can I not play D&D and still do this? I'm like, no, I'm not going to set up two sets of assignments. This is what we're doing. If you don't want to do this, fine in the class, but I really want to do creative writing. So that really, really put me in a tough situation. So I think one thing I want to make sure that happens is I will teach the other creative writing class if I have to. I want this class available, but I don't want students to feel like this is the only option for creative writing. Mm-hmm. The other thing, I think one of the other things I would do different is I think I could organize it better than, I have a better idea, like now that I've got the structure figured out. It took me a minute to figure that out because I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. So having the organization the organizational structure in place early on, I think will help a lot too. I think that would be two of the big changes. Another thing I think, and this is just me, I could always be more organized. I could always have a better plan, and I'm not the best at being organized sometimes, and so I think I could come up with a more organized approach to this thing.
Gotcha.
But it's working. It's still working. But
listen, mine was a one-day snapshot, but I was impressed, so I want to give you affirmation about that.
Well, thank you.
That leads us to our last question. I always try to end in these kind of interview talking situations. There is always, whether I've been in PD talking, ultimately it comes down to that advice question, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm wanting to do this. So when I'm asking you, Sterling Harris, what advice would you give to another teacher who's considering starting in particular, starting a whole TTRPG infused class? Not even just an aspect. You're obviously going whole hog.
Right.
But what would be one, maybe two key pieces of advice for those that are considering doing the same? Go ahead.
Well, definitely do it. That's my first piece.
Okay, right. Do it. Just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Nike, yeah.
I think one thing is to try to figure out early how you're going to deal with the numbers. If you're going to have a big class, how are you going to deal with that? I think I figured out a good way to do that. But the way I'm doing it may not work in every situation. There may be students that can't be left, not directly supervised. Like, I know those kids that were not playing today, that were working on, that had another assignment. I can leave them unsupervised, and they're not going to go crazy running around the classroom, right? We do have different grade levels here. So it's not all seniors that I know aren't going to be crazy. I do have freshmen in here. So, but I guess you're gonna have to keep. That's the one piece of advice is if you're gonna divide it up, like I'm doing, gotta make sure that you know your students and you know that you're gonna be able to rely on those students to do what they're supposed to be doing.
If I can echo,
yeah.
I think what I love about this is all things is that even though there's the novelty layer of obviously creative writing with D&D,
Right.
but this is best pedagogy stuff we're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
as always, good, strong classroom management and having good relationships with your students
Right.
is the foundation upon all other
Absolutely.
things. So that's what you're really saying, yeah.
And that's, I mean, that's the relationships. I've always said that's where it's all. And that's what teaching is all about to me. Has always been about relationships and building relationships with students and knowing your students. So the other thing I think that's important with this is, I think, is to I don't know how would I put this. Some students are not going to be enthusiastic about it, and that's okay. Don't expect them all to be enthusiastic about it, and don't be turned off by it. But also don't let that like shut you down, like, because there are students that just aren't interested and don't want to play D&D. You know, give them some way. Like I've got a couple kids, they're just writing. That's all they're doing. But point is that there are some kids that aren't going to be enthusiastic about it, but that you're talking about one or two in a class of 22 students, you know. So they're not going to necessarily be, but you can find something you can find a way to work them in somehow. I've got some kids that weren't that enthusiastic about it, but I still got them to play and encouraged them to play, and they had fun and they enjoyed it and they still sat down and played.
Yeah.
So today, there at least one kid that was playing today did not really want to play. But I was talking to her. I was like, "Come on, what else are you gonna do?" You know.
Yeah. Enjoy yourself a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Pulling out the reluctance.
So yeah, that's
some of the coaxing and probably figuring out is that but that's true of I might be a reluctant reader. I might be a reluctant person in science or social studies.
Right.
Pick your poison, as they say. Reluctant to be in physical education class.
Sure.
So how do we entice and encourage and make them feel safe to try?
Yes, that's the key. Is building that safe space, and that is so important because role playing is scary at first. You know, it can be scary, and kids don't want to look silly. You know, in this age, especially in this age of TikTok videos and gotcha videos and everything. I mean, it's just, they don't want someone to catch them looking goofy. You know, and so you got to create, and that's we do that in theater too. You try to create that safe space, and I think it happens over the longer you play, the more they feel comfortable with each other, and especially if I'm goofy. Like if I'm up there goofy and talking,
you lead from the top.
Exactly.
Hey, look at me.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be up there doing weird goblin voices and stuff like that, and they start laughing, and they realize that I'm going to be goofy too, and so then they start doing it. So
I love it. That's a great place to end, actually. So I want to thank you, Sterling Harris, for talking to me and to quote unquote us. I say in a general sense of the Coast audience out there.
Assuming someone might listen.
As soon as someone might listen, and thank you so much for your time today.
No, thanks for stopping by.